What's up, guys? Matt Brown here with John Haslbauer as we get ready for the Wyndham. It is an interesting tournament, John, as we have guys that are on the bubble trying to get inside the top 70. And, of course, if you get inside the top 70, you make the playoffs. There are some guys that are already inside the top 70 that need to make sure that they can get some sort of finish in this tournament so that they can ensure their spot in the playoffs as well. So there is some intrigue in this, even though it is not the top heaviest field when it comes down to it. There's still a lot going on this week.
Yeah, absolutely. The implications this week are as high up there as they are in any other non-major tournament on the PGA Tour's schedule, because it is kind of do or die for a lot of these players. It could be the last time they play in a few months if they don't, crack that top 70. So you see a lot of these fringe FedEx from, let's say 55th to 90, like all of those guys are here because they want to solidify a spot in the playoffs. It's not just making the playoffs in the same way other sports are. Making the playoffs means guaranteeing your tour card for years to come, setting your schedule, getting into the big events, giving yourself a chance to get to East Lake where all the money is. So there's a lot at stake this week. You're going to see some emotions out there. So just it's a fun watch. It may not be the biggest purse, but I think that kind of underscores what golf fans love about golf is the grind and seeing the light at the end of the tunnel here for some guys who are going to make their way into the playoffs.
And now, it's certainly not a field of nobodies. There's certain names that everybody that has looked at golf this season is going to recognize. But if you're a casual person dropping in, hopefully this video can help you a ton, because John and I do tons of research on these various tournaments, the courses, model these things out, and try to get you something that looks pretty good for you. And so, John, first and foremost, you write one of the best previews there is on the internet when it comes to the different articles and different courses and stuff that we are heading to over the course of the season. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Sedgefield?
Yeah, Sedgefield CC, known as one of the most extreme positional courses on the PGA Tour, which means this is a place where shorter, accurate hitters and great approach players from inside 200 yards can really separate. And that's not always the case on the PGA Tour. We've seen with the rise of distance chasing and speed chasing, a lot of guys can overpower courses and make up for a lack of accuracy. Those players will get exposed at Sedgefield CC. This is definitely a positional accuracy ball strikers course. So think Harbor Town, where we have the RBC Heritage, Sea Island, where we have the RSM Classic, YLICC, where we have the Sony Open. Those are great comp courses, all Bermuda-based, similar to Sedgefield CC. But we haven't seen those courses in over 6 months. For the Florida Swing was over 3 months ago. So it's also a really good buy low opportunity. So people who really grind on the research can see, the 3M Open, the UK Swing, those aren't the best comp conditions for what we're going to see this week. So if you didn't play well even the last 3 weeks, I'm okay overlooking that and buying low on some players. I was on Aaron Rye here last year following that same strategy. I was on Kevin Kisner here 4 years ago, so have a pretty good hit rate at the Wyndham Championship, and the through line has always been find the accurate ball strikers.
Yeah, that is really truly how I put together my model for this tournament. Went in, looked at good drive percentage, even threw in a little bit of just straight driving accuracy, which I really almost never do, but I was curious of the dudes that are actually just sitting in the middle of the fairway each and every time. And like I said, it's fairways and irons, and hopefully your guy can get going with a putter. And so that's kind of how the model was really based for me this week. I try to avoid the yardage buckets, but as you mentioned, from inside of 200 yards, I mean, that 150 to 200 yard range is like half the approaches on this course. And so I think it was a little silly if it completely ignored that. So threw that into the model as well. If you're depending the site that you're using to build these models, there's also distance from the edge of the fairway that could come in handy if you use one of the sites that uses that as well. And then it seems like just historically for me in these tournaments where I just need dudes that are when I need dudes that are kind of steady Eddie, I will always throw in a little bit of just strokes gained total just to kind of see what guys are looking at here. And as far as time frame goes, I actually did 3 different ones where I kind of did like 24 rounds, 36 rounds, and then just like this season in general. I went back 7 months, right? So I just kind of went back to the beginning of the calendar year and saw what these guys have done over the course of 2025. What were the stats that you threw into the model?
Yeah, a lot of the same. Definitely with you on the proximity stuff. I don't tend to overweight it because a lot of times the sample size is too small and proximity can get thrown off by a couple outliers that aren't really truly indicative of if a guy's a good wedge player. But here, what I'm really doing is referencing who are the guys who are good on approach, but it's because of the 200 plus yard stuff. I want to weed those guys out. So it's less driving the model and more like identifying guys who aren't the best course fit this week. And then beyond everything that you said with the accuracy metrics, driving, approach, Bermuda putting, it's comp course history for me. So I just threw in a mixed condition model, all the other less than 7,200 yard courses where they're going to be less than driver, a lot of layups, and just rewarding accuracy, playing from the fairway, playing, hit fairways in regulation, hit greens in regulation, hit putts. That's the name of the game at Sedgefield. Easy game. But I do want some skilled putters, so I put a little bit more weight in putting, just overall, like weighted putting, last 36 rounds, Bermuda putting, 3-putt avoidance. We've seen guys like Kevin Kisner, JT Poston, Webb Simpson, didn't come in the best ball striking form, but could always depend on their putter here. And this is a place where they kind of, can separate. So good putters is also something I'm looking at this week.
The thing I guess we could say about this is it's weird because when we look at this tournament, we don't necessarily call it a birdie fest, right? But it is a tournament that will have a low score. So one of the markets you can find over on Pick 6 at DraftKings is, birdies and how many birdies they're going to have in the round and things like that. And so while it's not necessarily a birdie fest, this is likely going to have somebody go or a handful of guys go pretty low.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at the leaderboard over the last few years, there's always like one guy who gets it to 20 and everybody else kind of lives in those mid-teens. So somebody gets a hot putter and starts to separate, but really, you're right, it's a par 70. There's only 2 par 5s. Par 5s are scoreable and most of the players will birdie that. But there's some tough par 4s as well because you're not able to hit driver wedge here. You kind of have to lay back and leave yourself these 150, 170 approaches in at a higher volume than we're used to seeing, and that's just not a scoring club for a lot of these guys. So ultimately, it's still hit greens in regulation, but you're going to have maybe a few more 20-footers than your average PGA Tour course, and those are where the good putters separate, the ones who can step over a 20-footer and confidently hit it. But you definitely want to make sure you're not putting yourself into trouble off the tee either. So that's where it's step 1, hit the fairway, step 2, hit the green, step 3, make the putts.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to talk a little bit about what you can find over on Pick 6. New customers can play $5, get $50 in bonus picks. This is available site-wide to all new Pick 6 users over there. Final thing for me here on dudes that I was looking at, I didn't really go so much, or I shouldn't say I didn't go so much. I didn't weight super, super heavily recent form because this is such a different course than we've seen recently. As you just mentioned, we haven't seen it in a while, that I kind of, these guys are so incredibly good. All these guys are so good. Just look at this past week and look at that leaderboard and how many people went incredibly low as well. I kind of much more on course fit for me, John, this week than kind of what you're looking like coming into this course, because you put just about any of these dudes on a course that fits them really well, and even if they aren't playing all that great, if it plays to their skill set, they can still go out there and really light it up. And so one last thing, because I know a lot of times as you and I will talk through different things, it's like, oh, okay, over the last 24 rounds, X, or over the last even, shorter sample size, 16 rounds or 12 rounds, X. We want guys that are really on a heater heading into a certain type of deal. I actually didn't do that this week.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's something that you can overlook the last couple of weeks because the conditions are so different, and I really love RSM Classic, Sony Open, the whole Florida swing, really. I mean, when you go from Sawgrass to Innisbrook, PGA National is a shorter course. There's some correlation there in it being on Bermuda. We'll talk about a couple guys, I'm sure, here who really popped on the Florida swing, and then we left Bermuda, and they kind of lost it. That's not really a coincidence. So some of these guys are just waiting to get back to Bermuda. They'll have this week, and hopefully if they get into the playoffs, they'll also have the St. Jude the week following. So they really look forward to this stretch. Tour Championship also being on Bermuda in this region. So some guys just can't wait for us to get to this part, get to August, and then they can get back on their Bermuda where they feel more comfortable.
So let's head over in some of the markets that you can start with, and this is just very, very easy. It would be better or worse finishing position for for the Wyndham. And for me, three really stand out because these are three guys that popped in the model for me, and I really do like their better position. Keegan Bradley really popped in the model for me this week, John. I don't know how he did for you, but you go in and you just kind of look again over the last 7 months, which is this calendar year essentially. Strokes gained off the tee for Keegan Bradley. He's second overall in this field. He's inside the top 20 in approach, just generally off of the tee. He's been good this calendar year as well. And then, some of the other things we're looking at is you brought up the putting statistics and par 4 birdie or better percentage, which is the extra par 4s on this course, only 2 par 5s. Keegan Bradley actually sits at 15th in this field again here in 2025. So Keegan was a guy I really like. He is currently set at 25.5, which means he's just got to finish at 25th or better in the tournament. And so I actually like Keegan a lot this week.
Yeah, Keegan, the only hole I could poke in Keegan's game right now is, well, I can't poke a hole in Keegan's game. The only hole I could poke in that argument would be that I think he might be here on a scouting trip for the Ryder Cup, and he might just want to get inside the ropes and check in on some of these fringe guys and see how they perform with their backs against the wall. He's actually grouped with Ben Griffin and Andrew Novak, and I don't think that's by coincidence. I think he talked to some people and said, I want to play closely with these guys. So again, he might want to show them up too and say, hey, I'm the big dog here. I'm going to be on this team, and you guys got to beat me to make it. And that might be a little friendly competition that he loves. But from a stat model standpoint, yes, he was popping very high for me as well. Great ball striker, great on Bermuda, has some pretty good history at this course. But the guy who was number one in my model, who I would love to take the better prop on pick 6, is Ben Griffin. He was number one in my model last year. Aaron Rai was number one in my model. He went on to win, and I put in the same metrics of that short iron approach, accuracy, putting on Bermuda, and it spit out Ben Griffin in the number one spot. He's somebody we were talking about, a buy low opportunity, maybe look back to the Bermuda and the Florida swing earlier. And the only blemish on his resume this year has really just been when he went to the links golf at the Scottish Open and British Open. We know that that's not nearly the same conditions we'll see this week. So I'm willing to buy low, quote unquote, on Ben Griffin. I know he's still one of the favorites this week, but at 26, I don't have concerns about him playing well. I think my only concerns would be, can he close the door? So I love the better than 26 prop I'm seeing on pick 6.
Yeah, he's rated out very high. I think maybe because I did put in just that straight driving accuracy metric that I don't normally put in. It might have skewed where he showed up just a little bit and knocked him down just a tad. I think that if you go by just the straight driving accuracy metric, he's kind of in the bottom third of the field with all of that. But everything else, for anyone that models, is kind of like green across the board for all the other statistics that I've thrown in there on Ben Griffin. So certainly like that a decent amount. What about the defending champ here in Aaron Rai? I will say this: he was no lower than third in any of the versions of the model that I ran. Obviously, he fits this course very well. He was able to win this event. He's set at 26.5 right now. Do you expect a repeat performance from him?
I'm actually kind of leaning more towards the worse on this prop. I think you factor in, obviously, the course history coming off a win, but his history beyond that one spike was not great at the Wyndham. He had 2 kind of disappointments before that in 3 career starts. The approach play is his bread and butter, and it's been okay. I would say it's not been great, and it's not really been good. It's been okay and a little bit mildly above average week to week. And when we look back this time last year, that was where he was leading the field. He was number one in strokes gained approach. He was tops in the inside 200 marks. He is still elite in fairway accuracy, which is typically a pretty good recipe for finishing in the top 20 and just like being in the mix by the end of the week. If you are not putting yourself into trouble where bogeys or worse are going to find you, then chances are you can par around here and still be in the mix. But the putter is also not trending in the way it was last year. It's kind of a perfect storm of all the stars aligning for Rai, where the putter was heating up, the irons were trending. Not really seeing all that this year. So I'm expecting a bit of a letdown with some of the media responsibilities as well. A little extra press time as the defending champ might take him out of his routine. So I would take the worst prop on Rai this week.
I'll tell you another guy who shockingly modeled well for me, and I had to dig in a little bit further to see why that was. And then I looked here on pick 6 and saw that he was set at 41.5, which means I just need a 41st or better finish out of one Ricky Fowler here, John.
Yeah.
And Ricky Fowler, if you start to go in, and especially if you just give a bigger sample size and say like, okay, like give me like last 40 rounds. So you're talking about like the last 10 tournaments that this guy has played. And Ricky Fowler is actually playing some good golf. Now, he doesn't really jump off the page in any specific category, but he's just been solid and honestly set at a number like 41.5. We're not asking him to jump off the page. We're not asking him to win. We're not even asking him to top 10 or top 20 this thing. We just need him to finish inside the top 41 finishers here in this one. And Ricky Fowler, I think, has done enough to get me on liking the better at 41.5 on Ricky.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a very high number to see for Ricky Fowler. He's somebody who, when I'm looking at positionals, finishing positions, I want somebody who isn't reliant on one stat category. If you're an approach specialist and you just don't have it, and I can't rely on your other well-rounded game to make up for it, then I'm a little concerned. It's a little bit more risky. With Ricky Fowler, as you said, he's doing it in all ways. He's gaining in all 4 categories over the last 5 to 10 starts. He's been above average to the field, off the tee, approach, around the green, and putting. So a well-rounded player. He may not be spiking on approach by any means, which is what I'm looking for in a winner this week. But for a 41st or better finish, it's a pretty good odds for Ricky. I'm with you on that one on the better side.
As we put a bow here on the finishing position, some of the bigger names that are in the field: Bob McIntyre, Jordan Spieth, Hideki Matsuyama, Siwoo Kim, Lucas Glover, Akshay Bhatia, Jake Knapp. Any of those guys better or worse on the numbers attached to them really kind of stand out to you?
I would rapid fire with you that Spieth and Glover, two that I'm more high on in the 30s. This is just a really good fit for both of them. Glover won here 2 years ago. Spieth has quietly put together a bunch of top 20s this season. I think he's probably on the outside looking in at the Ryder Cup, which is a little crazy to say because he's actually had a pretty good season, underratedly, and we know his history there. But he's playing this tournament for one reason, and it's to get some eyeballs on his game and justify his case for a Ryder Cup. So I like both of them as a positive. I would say Jake Knapp is somebody that I would sell high on this week. We talk about the importance of accuracy. All of his best finishes come on these driver-heavy courses, whether they're long courses or just courses that you're hitting driver off the tee early and often. That's the strength of his game. And it's also, we talked about guys we want to filter out who rely on approach from over 200. Jake Knapp's a perfect example of that. He really gains with the long irons, but inside with the shorter wedges, less his scoring club. So that would be a sell high situation for me, someone that I would take the worst prop on.
Yeah, I think the most interesting one to me, and this is the one where it's nobody's watching this video for me to tell you that I have absolutely no idea what to do with, is Hideki Matsuyama. Like, I mean, it's just a guy that goes out, he loses off the tee basically every single tournament that he plays, but then he plays really well in other forms. Like, I just have absolutely no idea what to do with the. If he came out and won this thing, it wouldn't shock me. Obviously, it's Hideki Matsuyama, and if he came out and like scraped and barely made the cut or even didn't make the cut, that also wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, he's a really good example, right? Like, this might be the wrong market in pick 6 to play Hideki Matsuyama. Yeah. You might want to go to round 1 greens and regulation and take his over. Take more than his prop of 13.5 I'm seeing in round 1 for Hideki. Or if you look at his birdies or better, I can pull that up as well. He's looking around 4.5 for birdies or better, and you might say he's a bit of a helter-skelter type of guy. He's going to get his birdies, he's going to get his bogeys. So you might want to take a more than 4.5 birdies on Hideki Matsuyama, even if you're not sure what you're going to get out of him over 4 rounds.
There is another market that's tournament wide. It is the holes completed. It is set at 36.5, which is basically are these guys going to make the cut or not? Is there anybody that modeled super well for you that maybe come in off of the radar a little bit and could be somebody that could make the cut, or somebody actually that didn't model very well for you at all and you think is in a real possibility of missing the cut?
Yeah, I think it's interesting with the make the cut odds. They're kind of weighted a bit, so it's in the finishing positions. It's an either or, 1-to-1. Here, you take a little bit weight off. You get 0.8x to your multiplier for the make cut odds because some of these guys are more likely than not to make the cut. So I kind of like that. I like throwing in a bunch of guys who we do expect to make the cut and wrap them together. Bud Cauley would be the guy who fits the description that you just said, which is like a buy low opportunity, somebody who fits the course well on paper, but maybe over the last few weeks hasn't been popping as much. He had 3 consecutive top 5s on the Florida swing when he played his best golf. So that's exactly the type of player I'm looking for when we come back. And he's another one of those guys like Fowler who's getting it done in a well-rounded way, off the tee approach, around the green, putting, all good. And he's from this kind of neck of the woods, this part of the country where Bermuda is kind of native to him. So Bud Cauley would be a nice, see the weekend type of play for me.
Yeah, I think the one that stood out to me, Kevin Roy, a guy kind of like Ricky Fowler that has just been playing good golf all around. Like Kevin Roy, just a guy. If you've paid attention to any of these lesser tournaments, it's like he's always finishing like 22nd or so. He's always finishing like T17, modeled out, inside the top 20 for me in most of the different versions that I ran this week as well. So he might be a guy to look at in that market as well. In the round by round markets that are very interesting, as you said. So you look at these round by round contests, and we've got overall strokes. So of course, round 1, what are they going to shoot? We have birdie or better. How many birdies or better are they going to make in round 1? Pars, fairways hit, and greens in regulation as well. Which of these markets do you think is the most attackable, and is there anybody that you like in those?
Yeah, I'm looking at birdies or better, and I'm not one to approach golf in a round-to-round basis. But what I love about Pick 6 is because I feel that way, sometimes I'm just, drawn dead after round 1. And then you can do the single round 2, which is usually where I'm like, okay, fine, I need a little something else to root for. I could have used that at the 3M Open last week when Sam Burns played me out of contention immediately on a short card. So I'm looking. I really do like this market, and I'm looking at the guys who have the 4.5 birdies or better spread. This is a course that only has 2 par 5s. And like we said, it's not a pure birdie fest. So I think maybe there's a narrative that can be dispelled here that like it's an easy course. It's really not that easy, and there's not a ton of gimme birdies out here. So there's a few guys who are at 4.5 birdies who aren't necessarily like pure birdie makers. I talked about Jake Knapp before. I think that would be a guy that I target because he makes his birdies through his length. And you're not going to get that here. So I would go less than 4.5 birdies for Jake Knapp. Sorry to pick on Jake Knapp so much this week. I'm also looking at a guy like Luke Clanton. He's been a little bit, up and down this year, but the approach play isn't really what it was last year. So he's still trying to figure out his form. I would go under there too, but I would keep going at these guys who have the 4.5 line, because usually you see 4.5 birdies and there's 4 par 5s on the scorecard, and you say that's where you're going to get your birdies, maybe 1 or 2 more on the 5s. But here there's only 2, so I think you're asking a lot to make 5 birdies in round 1.
Yeah, if you're looking for some guys that, from a modeling standpoint, kind of like a birdie or better percentage from the fairway, right? Which is a stat that we can look at because, like we said, we're looking for kind of fairways and greens here from these dudes and on a positional course. Some of the ones that don't necessarily get it from the length, but do get it from just being able to go out there and get it done. I mean, as I go down, let's see. Akshay Bhatia is another guy that shows up pretty highly on this one. Doesn't have to be a bomber. Lucas Glover is inside the top 15 in that one. Lee Hodges, Alex Smalley. Hideki is in there as well because, like you said, maybe there's different markets that you want to look at with Hideki. Matt Kuchar, actually, over the last calendar year, inside the top 20 in birdie or better from the fairway. And so just different guys like that, if you want to look at it from a different standpoint, there are guys that you could look at that don't necessarily get it from bombing it for sure. As we put a bow on all of this, let's just talk about general players overall here, and so people can go in and make their decision on their own as far as which market they want to hit them in. What were the players you were really, really high on? I know we talked about a few of them already, but what were some other players you were really, really high on this week?
Yeah, I would say Ben Griffin and Lucas Glover are the two I like the most this week. Glover being someone who's already won here 2 years ago. Ben Griffin having two top tens over his last three starts. And this being a course where course history is pretty predictive going forward. If you played well here once before, those tend to be the guys who can repeat it. Going a little bit further down, and a man that I only see a prop for make the cut here, so I would fully endorse that, is my man Nico Echevarria. So he is somebody who, when I put in my stat model and I look for all the must-have trends of driving accuracy, approach play, inside 200 yards, putting, but specifically putting on Bermuda, and the comp course history on short positionals, he stood out far and above the rest. So he is my pick to win this week. I know he's a bit of a long shot, but I love Nico on this course. He's gotten a lot of steam, in the industry at large. So Nico would be my guy to look out for in addition to Griffin and Glover.
I am really high on the Woo. Siwoo Kim, for me, anytime we're looking at like fairways and irons, I tend to gravitate towards Siwoo Kim. He's going to model out very well. If you kind of go back to those tournaments earlier in the year where that played a little bit better, you can see the 12th position, the 12th place finish at Pebble Beach. You can kind of see when you get to the Arnold Palmer and the Players, a T19, a T38 at the Players, all of these tournaments in which, like we said, we're heading in from a different point in the calendar year into where he did struggle a little bit over the last little while. I'm willing to give a break to him with some of these courses that didn't fit his skill set really at all. But I do believe heading back to a tournament in which we know the formula here, which is let's hit fairways, let's hit irons, let's try and get a putt to drop here and there. Now the putter is certainly ice cold over the last little bit for the Woo, but that's one of the things I think you just have to understand. He can pop with the putter from time to time, and you just have to understand he's going to be a bad putter at other times. But John, guess what? You don't have to be a good putter if you can put it 4 feet away, right? So hopefully he can just be sitting there knocking them stiff from 4 feet. So the Woo modeled out very, very well for me, and so I do like me some Siwoo Kim this week.
Yeah, well, if you've ever golfed with me, those 4-footers aren't always a gimme either. But I'll give him a little bit more credit. A past winner here with the 3 additional top fives on his resume at the Wyndham Championship. So, yeah, another like little helter-skelter type of guy. But when he's good, he's great. And you hope for that version of Siwoo when the stakes are at their highest.
Guys, if you want the full preview of this as well as other thoughts, head to lineups.com and you can see John's article. I say that each and every time we do one of these videos. It really is one of the best in the industry. So go ahead, get a grasp of what you're heading into here, the stats that we both like in all of this, and then you can draw your own conclusions as you go about this as well. But interesting stuff over there in the different pick six games that you can play, and certainly a fun tournament for all of the reasons we mentioned at the top of the podcast. There's going to be guys scrapping and clawing, trying to prove themselves, doing whatever they can to either get into the playoffs or perhaps the fringe Ryder Cup guys as well. For John, I am Matt. Good luck on all your winning plays.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org, Connecticut. 18 plus. 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska. 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia. Valid only where Pick 6 operates. See dkng.co/Pick6 states. Void in New York, Ontario, and where prohibited. Eligibility restrictions apply. 1 per new DraftKings customer. $5 plus first pick set to receive max. $50 issued as non-withdrawable bonus picks that expire in 14 days or 336 hours. Ends 8/24/25 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Terms, pick6.draftkings.com/promos. Sponsored by DraftKings.